A Second Chance at Love. Previous episodes are available in playlist, a link is given in the video description. Episode 70. Reward. Lucian wrapped his arms around her even more tightly. Nothing. The view just reminded me that you still haven't agreed to my marriage proposal. If Roxanne refuses to accept my proposal, I don't think it's a bad idea if we just die here together right now. When he brought up that topic, Roxanne couldn't help but recall that the ring was still in her possession. He said I should wear the ring if I agree, but... Embarrassed, she turned away, looked at the rolling waves beneath her, and argued, "Is that ceremony that important? If you're taking it that seriously, we should be sleeping in separate rooms right now." Her words stumped him, spurring him to reflect on his behavior. However, after contemplating it for a long while, he didn't think he did anything wrong. Instead, his thoughts aroused him. Unable to hold himself back anymore, he kissed her neck and started touching her inappropriately. Those are two different things. Only we know how we're sleeping behind closed doors. I want everyone to know that you're mine. The helicopter. He hugged her from behind comfortingly. I've set it to autopilot. Still, Roxanne couldn't help but feel nervous as her body tensed up. Upon detecting her tension, Lucian kissed the back of her ear and chuckled. As long as I can stay with you, I don't mind if we fall. Immediately, she covered his mouth. Don't say nonsense like that. We won't fall. The kids are still so young. Lucian intentionally buried his head in the nape of her neck with regrets. Then will you die with me once they grow up? He was only half joking. Roxanne loosened her grip and stared at him with a probing look. What's the matter with you? Why did you ask that question all of a sudden? Upon detecting the change in his demeanor, Roxanne blushed. You should go back to the cockpit lest something really happens. Lucian refused to give up that easily. Look at how beautiful the scenery is. Swiftly, Roxanne grabbed his hands and asked, "Didn't you say you took me out on this trip for me to relax?" Lucian let out a sigh and got rid of the indecent idea in his mind. He merely gazed at the sea while hugging her. You still haven't answered my question. After calming herself down, Roxanne lowered her eyes and replied, I already did. It's just that only the two of us know. That answer brought a satisfied smile to Lucian's face. Roxanne could still feel his rock-hard member pressing against her back. She was so nervous that she didn't dare to move. It wasn't until he returned to the cockpit and flew the helicopter back that she sighed in relief. However, she started worrying about her waist. I don't think I can avoid it tonight. If I had known this would happen, I wouldn't have left with him. Also, is it just me, or is he flying this thing really fast now? After landing the aircraft on the helipad, he went over to her and asked, Are you feeling better? Feeling touched, Roxanne smiled with glinting eyes. Much better. Thank you. She didn't expect Lucian to care so much about her bad mood that he would deliberately bring her out on a helicopter ride at night. That's all you have to say? Lucian frowned. Roxanne was confused. She was about to alight from the helicopter when she saw the hatch door had opened when Lucian grabbed her wrist and embraced her from behind. I don't get a reward. Thinking that he had calmed down, Roxanne planted a kiss on the edge of his lips. Just as she was going to leave, Lucian wrapped his arm around her waist and deepened the kiss. As Roxanne struggled to breathe, thanks to his overbearing kiss, she detected movements at his crotch. Lucian's hoarse voice traveled into her ear. "I don't want to wait anymore. How about we give it a try in the helicopter? No one will see us." Pushing his chest away, she rejected, "No." Breakfast. The couple spent a romantic, intimate night together. Roxanne woke up the next day with her body aching. "I wonder if I should sleep in the guest room from now on." Lucian entered the room right then and looked at her with concern. "Feeling horrible?" Roxanne bit her lip in embarrassment. "All thanks to you." Lucian sat beside her with a smile and massaged her waist. He didn't plan to apologize for his actions. "You should rest for a little longer before leaving the bed. Essie woke up early in the morning to prepare breakfast for you. She should be here soon to call you." Roxanne's expression froze. Afraid her child would see her in that state, she endured the pain and tried to leave the bed. "Mommy!" Estella's voice rang out outside of the room. Roxanne paused and twisted her back by accident, causing her face to contort in pain. "What's wrong, Mommy?" When the girl saw her mother's expression, she dashed into the room and attempted to hug her mother's waist. However, she was stopped by her father. "Mommy accidentally sprained her waist, so don't touch her. Are you here to invite Mommy to breakfast?" Estella nodded. Fearing that Lucian would say something he shouldn't to the girl if he kept going, Roxanne quickly said, "I'll head downstairs soon. Wait for me in the dining room, all right?" Estella was still visibly worried about her mother's waist. Roxanne shot a glare at Lucian and patted the girl's head. "I'm fine. It was just an accident. It's all right now. Let's hurry back home." Instead of forcing her, he took her back to the car and drove her home. Then she stood up and took 2 steps away from the bed, which eased the girl's worry. The moment Estella left the room, Roxanne dropped her act. "I already didn't have much rest. This man has no self-control." Lucian brought Roxanne to the bathroom apologetically to clean up. When he tried to do inappropriate stuff again, she kicked him out. They dawdled for a while before heading downstairs. Just as Roxanne arrived in the dining room, she saw a glass of milk and a sandwich on the table. It was a simple sandwich, but it was pretty tricky for a 5-year-old to pull off. Ms. Estella has been learning and practicing making breakfast for the past few days, Mrs. Farwell. It's only until today that she's willing to present her handiwork to you because she's satisfied with it, said Catalina to the family. Upon hearing that, Roxanne turned to Estella. The girl looked at her with anticipation and sparkling eyes. Roxanne felt touched and took a bite of the sandwich before beaming at Estella. "It's delicious. Good job, Essie. You're better at making delicious food, Mommy," said Estella when she heard her mother's compliments. The girl's reaction made Roxanne laugh. "Why did you decide to make breakfast for me?" Glancing at her brothers, Estella said, "I've been wanting to do it, but we made you angry again yesterday, so." The boys chimed in, "We know what we did wrong, Mommy. We promise we won't pull pranks anymore and will continue to learn from Daddy." Roxanne nodded gladly. "I'm glad you all do. I believe one day you'll all improve so much that you'll become the world's greatest hackers." At the side, Lucian concurred, they do have the talent. Do not contact me after breakfast. Lucian sent the 3 children to kindergarten while Roxanne went to the research institute. Dr. Jarvis, any news from Damaris Group? Linda had been waiting for her in front of her office early in the morning. Roxanne halted in his tracks when she heard the name Damaris Group. She recollected herself and replied, "We still need more time." "What's wrong? Is there any problem with the factory?" Linda looked helpless. "We used up the last batch of medicinal herbs yesterday afternoon, so now the factory is at a standstill. The person in charge contacted me last night, and we talked all night about the issue of stoppage pay for the workers. As a result of that, Linda did not sleep well all night." Roxanne knitted her brows. She knew she had to tackle the problem, as it had worsened. "All right. How much do they want?" "Proceed with the payment first. I'll solve this problem as soon as possible." As soon as she finished speaking, she picked up her pace and entered the office. She glanced at the call log on her phone and noticed Jack's number was second on the list. She gritted her teeth, mustered her courage, and called him back. However, he hung up directly. A few moments later, Roxanne received a text message. "Ms. Jarvis, don't contact me if you haven't figured out the pricing issue. Call me only when you've figured it out." Upon reading the message, Roxanne felt a wave of disappointment wash over her. She put her phone down and picked up a directory, searching for medicinal herb suppliers she had not contacted before. As she flipped through the pages, she was overwhelmed with emotions. Never in a million years did she expect Jack, who was once an elegant and refined young gentleman, to be a profit-driven businessman. That their motive for this medicine was completely at odds with each other, they would most likely not cooperate again. Realization hit Roxanne like a ton of bricks, and she immediately grabbed the phone to call the suppliers she missed yesterday. However, she failed to find a supplier she was satisfied with. Just then, she heard Linda's voice from outside the door. "Dr. Jarvis, the factory is requesting an additional 1 million for the stoppage fee." Despite the painful sting in her heart, Roxanne had to accept it for the moment. She hung up the phone, strode out of the office, and said to Linda, "Gather all the research team leaders in the conference room." Linda nodded and called the team leaders over. 10 minutes later, all the leaders appeared in the conference room. "As you all know, our research institute is in a difficult situation," Roxanne began in a friendly yet authoritative tone. "Do any of you have any suggestions on finding a new medicinal herb supplier?" The leaders exchanged glances before one of them spoke up. "Dr. Jarvis, I'm confused. We have a good relationship with Damaris Group, so why did they stop supplying us with medicinal herbs?" Another leader chimed in, "We know Damaris Group has the best medicinal herbs. Is there really no way to persuade them to continue supplying us?" Faced with the employees' skeptical looks, Roxanne felt uncomfortable but ultimately decided to come clean. "Our original plan with Damaris Group didn't pan out, and we're now in need of a new supplier for medicinal herbs." As soon as the words left her mouth, silence fell over the room as everyone exchanged uncertain glances. "I agree with you as far as I know. Mr. Damaris' vision for this project was to give patients a fighting chance. I don't think there's anything wrong with that." Despite her efforts to explain, Some team leaders continued to whisper among themselves, casting suspicious looks in her direction. The conference room was so quiet that she could hear one of the leaders whisper, "If anyone has any concerns, please don't hesitate to voice them." "I'm here to listen," Roxanne said courteously while looking at the team leader. The team leader turned around and met her gaze. After a few seconds of silence, he expressed his doubts. "Ms. Jarvis, you were the only one who negotiated with Damaris Group, and we had been kept in the dark throughout the negotiation." Roxanne lowered her gaze slightly and responded softly, "I'll explain everything if you wish to know what transpired." He felt a little uneasy as she looked at the faces before her. Undoubtedly, she had acted unilaterally and set the price without consulting her team. After witnessing the change in Jack's behavior, Roxanne realized she could not tolerate how apathetic medical practitioners were toward patients. Everyone fixed their gazes on her, waiting for her to explain. Roxanne gathered her courage and said, "I proposed a price of 120 for the medicine, but Mr. Damaris insisted on 300. A heavy silence settled in the room after she uttered those words. Roxanne could see how serious they were, and it seemed they began to understand the picture. "Sorry, but I want to know why you set that price." A team leader finally voiced out his doubt. Roxanne tried to stay composed and explained, "I want patients to be able to afford the medicine. Doing so might incur losses in the short term, but the long-term benefits are worth it. By doing so, we'll also improve the reputation of the research institute." In other words, she put the interests of patients and the research institute before her, while Jack only prioritized Damaris Group. After explaining the situation, Roxanne smiled at everyone. "That's my 2 cents. If my idea doesn't sit well with you, and you want to bail, I won't hold it against you. But I hope we can all keep the technology used to produce the medicine a secret." Once again, the room fell silent, causing Roxanne to clench her hand on the table. She could not shake off the unease in her. "I agree with you." Someone spoke up and threw his weight behind her. Roxanne's eyes lit up with delight. The leader continued, "I appreciate your support. We've been putting our heart and soul into this research institute for so long, and what Dr. Jarvis did is also in the best interests of the organization. I hope her decision can take us to the next level." "I agree that Mr. Damaris' pricing is a little steep," another team leader said. Everyone else then chimed in with their support for Roxanne. Roxanne was pleasantly surprised. "Thank you for backing me up." Roxanne had thought they would side with Jack, considering how close they were to him. All the team leaders had somber expressions on their faces. "Dr. Jarvis, we believe in your vision. We want the institute to succeed." Roxanne let out a sigh of relief and redirected the conversation back to the matter at hand. "So, does anyone have any leads on the medicinal herb suppliers we can reach out to?" As it turned out, everyone present had been working at the research institute for many years and had some connections in the pharmaceutical industry. They immediately started brainstorming and discussing the potential medicinal herb suppliers they had in mind. A CEO has to eat nevertheless. None of them could reach a conclusion even after spending the whole afternoon on it. One of the experienced team leaders heaved a sigh and stated, "Damaris Group produces one of the highest quality medicinal herbs in the world. It will be challenging to find herbs that can rival them. Moreover, we need these medicinal herbs in large quantities, which makes it even more difficult. Everyone was at a loss for what to do, especially since he also could not come up with anything. If there's no other way, we can only make concessions on the pricing. One of the team leaders had already thought about the worst possibility. Everyone was in a state of despair in the conference room. Roxanne's heart sank to rock bottom. She had no choice but to conclude the meeting since it was already time for lunch. Let's stop here today. I hope you guys can keep this from the workers and let this information stay within us. There's no need to spread negativity in the research institute. I'll think of something in the meantime. Everyone assented. Suddenly thinking of something, Roxanne smiled at them. The atmosphere in the research institute has been too tense recently. You guys can organize a team lunch and bring your respective teams out this afternoon. I'll settle the bills. Nevertheless, none of them could reach a conclusion even after spending that whole afternoon on it. Ona of the experienced team leaders heaved a sigh and stated, Damaris Group produces one of that highest quality medicinal herbs in the world. It will be challenging to find herbs that can rival them. Moreover, we add these medicinal herbs in largo quantities, which makes it even more difficult. Everyone was at a loss for what to do, especially since Ha also could not come up with anything. If there is no other way, Wax can only make concessions on the pricing. Ona of that TAM leaders had already thought about that worst possibility. Everyone was in a state of despair in the conference room. Roxana's heart sank to rock bottom. Cher had no choice but to conclude the mating since it was already time for lunch. Let's stop here today. I hope you guys can keep this from the workers and let this information stay within us. There is no need to spread negativity in the research institute. I'll think of something in the meantime. Everyone assented. Suddenly thinking of something, Roxana smiled at them. The atmosphere in the research institute has been too tense recently. You guys can organize a TAM lunch and bring your respective teams out this afternoon. I'll settle the bills. She wanted to lighten the atmosphere in the research institute. Everyone understood her intentions and agreed to do it. Roxanne watched them leave the conference room. As she was in no mood to eat, she sat in the room alone, trying to think of any way to resolve this crisis. She considered calling Harvey because she knew he would be overjoyed that she had developed such a medicine. Harvey was very reputable in the industry, so he might know medicinal herb suppliers who supplied high-quality medicinal herbs. She took out her phone to call him when Lucian's call came in. Roxanne recomposed herself before answering the phone. Have you eaten? Lucian's deep voice sounded beside her ear. It was extremely comforting. Roxanne couldn't help but feel aggrieved upon hearing his voice. I haven't eaten. I've been busy the whole afternoon, but I don't have any appetite. Come out. I'm outside the research institute. Lucian seemed to have predicted her situation. His voice was warm and caring. Roxanne's eyes lit up, and she walked out. Why are you here? Aren't you working? Lucian replied affectionately, even a CEO has to eat. Also, I tired you out yesterday, so I have to make it up to you today, or else I'm afraid you will sleep in the guest room. Lucian replied affectionately, even a CEO has to eat. Also, I tired you out yesterday, so I have to make it up to you today, or else I'm afraid you will sleep in the guest room. As the events of last night replayed in her mind, Roxanne's face gradually flushed bright red, and she instinctively scanned her surroundings. She breathed a sigh of relief upon seeing no one near her and reproached, "Stop saying such nonsense. I'm almost out of the company." Lucian chuckled and didn't say anything. He didn't hang up the call either. Roxanne immediately saw the familiar Bentley when she walked out of the research institute. Too idealistic Roxanne was still thinking about the matter with medicinal herbs even after she got in the car, so she didn't hear Lucian's question. Only when the car engine started did she regain her senses. "Where are we going?" Lucian replied, "I don't know what you want to eat, so I'll choose some random place for us." Roxanne nodded, as she was in no mood to think about this. Soon, the car stopped next to a restaurant entrance. Lucian got out of the car and opened the door for Roxanne. She was still in a daze, consumed by her worries. Her thoughts were clearly written on her face. Seeing that, Lucian drew his brows together worriedly. He suppressed his worry for her and brought her into the restaurant. The meal ended on an unappetizing note, as Roxanne had a poor appetite. She was plagued with anxiety, so she couldn't really taste the food. She was done with her meal quickly, but at Lucian's insistence, she ate a few more mouthfuls. "Is the collaboration with Damaris Group not going well?" Lucian asked after they finished their meal and got back into the car. Roxanne froze for a few seconds. She didn't know whether she should tell him about the specifics of it, as she wanted to resolve this matter by herself. The car window facing the research institute was lowered so everyone who came out of the institute could see Lucian inside the car. Lucian saw her and hung up the phone before alighting from the vehicle. Roxanne quickly walked over and got in the car with him. "What do you want to eat?" Lucian asked her as he got in the car from the other side. As he spoke, he sneaked a peek at her from the rearview mirror. Her expression was the same as last night. "I'm right. The problem with Damaris Group is still unresolved, and it has taken a turn for the worse." Roxana was still thinking about the matter with medicinal herbs even after Sha got in the car, so she didn't hear Lucian's question. Only when the car angina started did she again her senses. "Where are we going?" Lucian replied, "I don't know what you want to eat, so I'll choose some random place for us." Roxana nodded, as Sha was in no mood to think about this. Soon, the car stopped next to a restaurant entrance. Lucian got out of the car and opened the door for Roxana. Sha was still in a daze, consumed by her worries. Her thoughts were clearly written on her face. Sawing that, Lucian drew his brows together worriedly. Ha suppressed his worry for her and brought her into the restaurant. The mail and dad on an unappetizing nota, as Roxana had a poor appetite. Sha was plagued with anxiety, so Sha couldn't really taste the food. Sha was done with her meal quickly, but at Lucian's insistence, Sha ate a few more mouthfuls. "Is the collaboration with Damaris Group not going well?" Lucian asked after they finished their meal and got back into the car. Roxana froze for a few seconds. Sha didn't know whether Sha should tell him about the specifics of it, as Sha wanted to resolve this matter by herself. However, she didn't mind relying on him if it was the last resort. "Do I really have no other choice now?" As she was still hesitating, Lucian responded, "Jack didn't accept your pricing and the negotiation failed." Now the Damaris family is rejecting to collaborate with you. He sounded confident as if he had already investigated this matter. Roxanne was surprised. How do you know about this? Lucian replied, there are only a few scenarios of how the collaboration between Jack and you will turn out. I have been a businessman for so long, so I could already tell what happened from your expression. A look of dejection flashed across Roxanne's face. Lucian continued, if it's me, I won't accept your pricing either. Is it really that low? However, if I set the price higher, Lucian did not attempt to console her as he always had previously. Instead, he simply stated, to a businessman, if the profits are too low and it takes a long time to see any decent returns, it's not a wise investment. Roxanne frowned. But we should always consider patients first since we are in the medical industry. Shouldn't we? She lowered her head as she was filled with self-doubt. Or am I thinking too much into this? Am I being too idealistic? Lucian gazed at her with a grim expression and didn't say anything. Lucian gazed at her with a grim expression and didn't say anything. She was indeed too idealistic, especially when it came to business matters. When she threw herself into a business battle, she didn't think of herself as a businesswoman but simply as a person from the medical industry. It was impossible for her to win against Jack. However, she could still maintain her ideals since Lucian was on her side. But some of my experienced employees in the research institute are also on my side when we had a meeting just now. Roxanne looked at him hopefully as she wanted to get his affirmation. Lucian replied, as someone from the medical industry, there's nothing wrong with your method. In fact, it's very noble. In other words, she was still lacking in business negotiations. Roxanne had been facing countless setbacks recently. Self-doubt filled her heart now that Lucian was also criticizing her too. She couldn't help but ask, what will you do in my situation? Will you raise the price just as Jack wanted? It is only right. Lucian smiled faintly. If I think lowering the price will benefit us, I'll definitely remain firm in that decision. But Jack can't accept it, and the collaboration will fall apart. Roxanne did not understand the situation. That was exactly what she did, and Damaris Group unilaterally terminated the collaboration. There was no change in Lucian's expression as he said, I'll force him to work with me. Roxanne frowned and studied him. How? By using public opinion. The Damaris family has been operating their business for more than a century. The public thinks they're benevolent, but they're unwilling to lower the price of the medicines. If this issue is made public, they will have no choice but to lower the price even if it's for the sake of their reputation. Roxanne nodded in agreement, feeling as if she had learned something new. But, knowing well what was on her mind, Lucian instantly revealed why that method could not work. But if we do that, the Damaris family's reputation will be affected. I'm not bothered by it, but it's not the case for you. Roxanne nodded. The Damaris family held a very important position in the medical industry. After all those years, Roxanne, too, felt that they were an incredible family. Moreover, the pricing this time might just be Jack's idea. Lucian smiled faintly. If I think lowering the price will benefit us, I'll definitely remain firm in that decision. But Jack can't accept it, and the collaboration will fall apart. Roxana did not understand the situation. That was exactly what Sha did, and Damaris Group unilaterally terminated the collaboration. Thara was no changa in Lucian's expressions as Ha said, "I'll force him to work with Ma." Roxana frowned and studied him. How? By using public opinion. The Damaris family has been operating their business for more than a century. The public thinks they're benevolent, but they're unwilling to lower the price of the medicines. If this issue is made public, they will have no choice but to lower the price even if it's for the sake of their reputation. Roxana nodded in agreement, failing as if Cher had learned something new. But, knowing well what was on her mind, Lucian instantly revealed why that method could not work. But if we do that, the Damaris family's reputation will be affected. I'm not bothered by it, but it's not the casa for you. Roxana nodded. The Damaris family held a very important position in the medical industry. After all those years, Roxana, too, felt that they were an incredible family. Moreover, the pricing this time might just be Jack's idea. Roxanne did not want to ruin the Damaris family's reputation because of that matter. If she did that, the entire traditional medicine industry would be affected. She felt utterly defeated. I can't do that, but I've contacted all the suppliers I know. None of them can replace the Damaris family. Lucian arched his brow slightly at her troubled expression. Perhaps I can help. Roxanne's eyes lit up a little, but there was also a hint of hesitation in them. This is the research institute's problem. I can't keep asking you for help every time. But the matter can't wait, and you're out of ideas. Roxanne parted her lips, but she could not say anything to counter his words. Lucian added, "Anyway, I'm not helping for free. You want a share of profits?" Roxanne asked in confusion. Lucian was taken aback by her words. After some time, he smiled. If it were someone else, I'd have seized the opportunity to gain something out of this favor. Roxanne's heart raced. If Lucian really wants a share of the profit, does that mean I'll have to discuss business with him in the future? The thought of it gave her a headache. But since it's you I'm helping, I want something else, Lucian went on. Roxanne felt relieved and puzzled at the same time. Lucian leaned closer to her ear and murmured something before returning to his seat and waiting for her answer with a smile. Lucian leaned closer to her ear and murmured something before returning to his seat and waiting for her answer with a smile. Roxanne's face flushed, and a hesitant look filled her eyes. Without forcing her, Lucian slowly started the engine and drove toward the research institute. It was not until they arrived at the entrance did he turn to look at her. "What do you think?" Roxanne hesitated throughout the journey, but she still gave in and nodded resignedly in the end. Upon getting that response from her, Lucian smiled. He immediately unbuckled his seatbelt and leaned over to give her a kiss. Did Roxanne say yes? After watching Roxanne enter the research institute, Lucian turned the car around and headed toward Queen Group. Jonathan had just returned and was about to enter his office when Lucian arrived at Queen Group. "Lucian, what brings you here to see me today?" Jonathan smiled when he saw Lucian. However, the smile on Lucian's face took Jonathan by surprise. "Wait. Are you really Lucian? Or are you someone disguised as him?" Lucian's expression turned cold, and he stared at Jonathan speechlessly. "Yes, it's me." Jonathan was certain he was seeing Lucian only when the latter schooled his expression. He opened the door and invited Lucian into the office. "Why are you here out of the blue?" After pouring 2 cups of coffee for Lucian and himself, Jonathan sat on the couch. "Did you and Roxanne?" Lucian glanced at him. "Roxanne needs your help." "Since you've asked, I'll definitely help you," Jonathan agreed to it in a heartbeat. "I would like to trouble you too. You don't have to be so polite when it's just us." Jonathan was shocked. Only when Roxanne ran out of breath and patted his shoulder did he reluctantly let her go. "If the research institute cannot hold on during this period, just tell me. I can give you funds whenever you want," Lucian said hoarsely. All of a sudden, Roxanne felt something was amiss. She turned to him and said, "Why do I feel like I've become your sugar baby, and you're even supporting the entire research institute?" Lucian shook his head to disagree with her statement. "You're my wife. It's only right for you to spend my money." Roxanne blushed and said nothing. After all, she would never ask him for money. "If you speak like that, I'll blame myself to death when I fail to help you out. Find all the medicinal herb suppliers or farms in the country that can replace Damaris Group as soon as you can. I need you to strike a deal with them no matter what their price is." The smile on Jonathan's face froze, and he let out a dry laugh. "That's indeed a little troublesome." Lucien raised his brows slightly, looking a little threatening. Seeing that, Jonathan quickly explained, "Lucien, you don't know much about the pharmaceutical industry, so you don't know just how good the quality of Damaris Group's medicinal herbs is. The reason their business can operate for so long is that they live up to their reputation. It's really hard to find suppliers that can produce medicinal herbs that are as good as Damaris Group's." Lucien remained impassive. Jonathan shuddered inwardly at the sight and quickly added, "Then again, it's not entirely impossible to find one in the country. It's just that the workload will be a little heavy. Farwell Group has a project. Perhaps Queen Group can get involved in it," said Lucien suddenly. He was making an exchange. Naturally, Jonathan was interested in Farwell Group's projects. Nonetheless, he had to find out why Lucien was putting in so much effort to find such a company first. The smile on Jonathan's face froze, and he let out a dry laugh. "That's indeed a little troublesome." Lucian raised his brows slightly, looking a little threatening. Seeing that, Jonathan quickly explained, "Lucian, you don't know much about the pharmaceutical industry. So you don't know just how good the quality of Damaris Group's medicinal herbs is. The reason their business can operate for so long is that they live up to their reputation. It's really hard to find suppliers that can produce medicinal herbs that are as good as Damaris Group's." Lucian remained impassive. Jonathan shuddered inwardly at the sight and quickly added, "Then again, it's not entirely impossible to find one in the country. It's just that the workload will be a little heavy. Farwell Group has a project. Perhaps Queen Group can get involved in it," said Lucian suddenly. He was making an exchange. Naturally, Jonathan was interested in Farwell Group's projects. Nonetheless, he had to find out why Lucian was putting in so much effort to find such a company first. "Did Roxanne's partnership with Damaris Group fail?" he asked cautiously. Lucian nodded. Seeing that, Jonathan instantly exclaimed, "That's great. You don't have to worry about Roxanne and Jack getting too close now. Lucian took a sip of the coffee and said with a deep voice, if you can help me find another medicinal herb supplier, I won't have to worry about other men, let alone Jack. Jonathan froze. It took him several minutes to return to his senses. He guessed, did Roxanne say yes? Lucian curled his lips, and his eyes twinkled. Something like that, but we have to settle this first. Jonathan sighed and exclaimed, finally. It's been so long. I can't believe you two are finally getting married. No wonder Lucian was smiling so brightly when he arrived just now. Well, now that you've said that, I've got to settle this even if it's for Essie's sake. Just wait for my good news. Lucian chuckled and lifted his cup. In response, Jonathan clinked his cup with Lucian's. They downed the coffee as though they were drinking alcohol. Afraid she will return at the same time, Frida was sitting uneasily in the office one floor below Jonathan's, thinking about the person she had seen earlier downstairs. That should be Lucian if I'm right. Jonathan and Lucian have barely been in contact ever since Aubrey left. Why is he here out of the blue? Did he find something? Did he manage to track down Aubrey? Frida could no longer sit still. She hurriedly grabbed her bag and left the office. The moment she reached downstairs, she got into her car and sped toward the man's house she and Aubrey visited the last time. The sky was already dark by the time she arrived. At that moment, Sean was leisurely watering the flowers. He hesitated for a moment when he heard the butler's report, but he still let the butler bring the guest in. It's an honor to have you here, Miss Queen. Only when the butler brought Frida in did Sean put the watering can aside, wipe his hands, and sit on the couch. Casting the rigid-looking Frida a glance, he added, have a seat and tell me what you need. Frida sat down hesitantly, feeling a little timid as she stared at the man in front of her. The way he treated Aubrey last time left a lingering fear in Frida's heart. Moreover, Sean was capable of sending Aubrey out of the country without the Farwell family knowing. Clearly, his background was unfathomable. He was not someone Frida could offend. Despite Sean's politeness, Frida could not help but question herself. I shouldn't have come, should I? The butler poured them some coffee and placed one cup in front of her. Only then did Frida snap back to her senses. Sean sensed her fear for him, and a hint of unfathomable emotion flashed across his eyes. I wonder what's so important that made you come here today? Frida hesitated again at the mention of her purpose for visiting. After taking a sip of the coffee, she mustered her courage and uttered warily, I haven't been able to contact Aubrey ever since she left for the past few days. I'm a little worried, so, you're here to ask me about Aubrey's whereabouts? Sean asked. The way he treated Aubrey last time left a lingering fear in Frida's heart. Moreover, Sean was capable of sending Aubrey out of the country without the Farwell family knowing. Clearly, his background was unfathomable. He was not someone Frida could offend. Despite Sean's politeness, Frida could not help but question herself. I shouldn't have come, should I? The butler poured them some coffee and placed one cup in front of her. Only then did Frida snap back to her senses. Sean sensed her fear for him, and a hint of unfathomable emotion flashed across his eyes. I wonder what's so important that made you come here today? Frida hesitated again at the mention of her purpose for visiting. After taking a sip of the coffee, she mustered her courage and uttered warily, "I haven't been able to contact Aubrey ever since she left for the past few days. I'm a little worried, so, you're here to ask me about Aubrey's whereabouts?" Sean asked. Frida stopped talking. She forced a smile and bobbed her head, quickly adding, "It's okay if you can't tell me. I just want to know when she's coming back." Sean snorted meaningfully. "Do you want her to come back or the opposite?" Frida's expression stiffened when she heard that. Studying her face, Sean uttered nonchalantly, "Let me guess. I think you're afraid she'll return." Without realizing it, Frida slowed her breathing and stammered, "How could I? Aubrey's my best friend." As if not hearing her words, Sean put down his cup and said, "She'll be back, but not as Aubrey." Frida frowned, her eyes filled with confusion. Sean explained flatly, "Don't worry. No one, not even you, will recognize her when she comes back." Just as Frida was about to let out a sigh of relief, she heard him say, "Unless she goes looking for you." That sentence gave her a feeling that resembled a venomous snake wrapped around her neck. It was suffocating. "Is Aubrey not planning on letting me off the hook when she returns? It is getting late. What's wrong? Are you afraid she'll look for you?" asked Sean when he saw her expression. Panic crossed Frida's face. "No way. I'm just worried." Sean chuckled lightly. "About?" Frida looked around guiltily. "The police are keeping a close eye on every road to the Farwell residence. She'll definitely get caught if she comes back. I think it's best if she doesn't come back." Sean snorted coldly. "No can do. I sent her abroad just for the day of her return." Aubrey's grudge against Roxanne was deep. She would surely be of great help to Sean when she came back, including the woman currently in front of him. He softened his tone and asked, "Aubrey's wanted by the police, yet you still took the risk and came looking for me with her. Your relationship with her is amazing. I can't help but wonder if she has some dirt on you." His words hit the bull's-eye. Frida's heart clenched as she gripped the hem of her skirt and forced a smile. "Don't make wild guesses without any proof. Aubrey and I have always been close." Sean merely stared at her, examining her expression. Moments later, he let out a mysterious smile as if he had confirmed something. "It was too abrupt of me. I just think your relationship with her is too good to be true." With that, he stood up nonchalantly, walked to the wine cabinet, and returned with a bottle of wine and 2 glasses. His sections filled Frida with puzzlement and wariness. After pouring 2 glasses of wine, Sean pushed one of the glasses toward Frida. "I'm not used to having coffee with pretty girls. Let's have some wine instead." As he spoke, there was an ambiguous smile on his face. Frida frowned and did not accept the drink. "I can't drink. I drove here." Hearing that, Sean spread out his hands in a gesture of disappointment. "Wet pity. Looks like I've got to drink alone, then." Feeling a little uneasy, Frida picked up her bag and said, "It's getting late. I'll be taking my leave." Before she could get to her feet, Sean yelled out, "Are you here just to ask about Aubrey? If that's the case, you can't blame me for suspecting the relationship between you two." Moments later, he let out a mysterious smile as if he had confirmed something. It was too abrupt of me. I just think your relationship with her is too good to be true. With that, he stood up nonchalantly, walked to the wine cabinet, and returned with a bottle of wine and 2 glasses. His actions filled Frida with puzzlement and wariness. After pouring 2 glasses of wine, Sean pushed one of the glasses toward Frida. I'm not used to having coffee with pretty girls. Let's have some wine instead. As he spoke, there was an ambiguous smile on his face. Frida frowned and did not accept the drink. I can't drink. I drove here. Hearing that, Sean spread out his hands in a gesture of disappointment. What a pity. Looks like I've got to drink alone, then. Feeling a little uneasy, Frida picked up her bag and said, "It's getting late. I'll be taking my leave." Before she could get to her feet, Sean called out, "Are you here just to ask about Aubrey? If that's the case, you can't blame me for suspecting the relationship between you two." Hearing that, Frida had no choice but to sit back down. "Nonetheless, I'm more than willing to be used by a pretty woman." Sean had a pair of bright eyes that crinkled when he smiled. He had used that same trick on many women. Even Frida was slightly mesmerized by him when she sat down. "I don't understand why a sensible woman like you would end up being friends with a person like Aubrey," he commented. Frida lowered her guard and mumbled, "I didn't know she was that kind of person, either. It was too late by the time I found out." Sean caught the keyword in her words. "What's too late?" Snapping out of it, Frida forced herself to stay calm and said, "I was already her close friend when I found out about it, so I can't just abandon her." Sean nodded thoughtfully and did not pursue it any further. The two continued making small talk, but it was mostly Sean who came up with topics for the conversation. He stopped bringing up Aubrey's name, which helped Frida relax more. "He is the eldest child." At the end of their conversation, Sean walked her out the door. "I had a great time talking to you today. It's a pity we didn't have drinks together. When will you be free to have a meal with me, Ms. Queen?" Frida hesitated for a moment. Even so, ideas came to her mind when she recalled their pleasant conversation earlier. Sean was attractive and had power comparable with the Farwell family. Frida had wanted to let Aubrey marry Lucian so she could bask in Aubrey's glory. Now that she had a perfectly good opportunity presented to her, there was no reason for her not to climb up the social ladder. With that thought in mind, she agreed and arranged a time with him. As Sean watched her leave, his expression darkened gradually. The Queen family has a close relationship with the Farwell family. Frida is definitely someone I can use. Based on my observation, Aubrey must have some dirt on her. If I fail to restrain her with affection, I'll ask Aubrey for Frida's dirt. I'm going to have complete control over Frida no matter what." On her way home, Frida kept thinking of the way Sean treated her. He's incredible for being able to send Aubrey out of the country without the Farwell family or the police finding out about it. If I can actually win his heart, Aubrey will become an insignificant insect I can get rid of easily. The more she thought about it, the more relieved she felt. There was even a subtle smugness on her face when she stepped into the Queen residence. "Where have you been?" Recently, Jonathan had been closely monitoring her whereabouts. When he found out she had left the company in the afternoon, he had been waiting in the living room ever since he came home. That was why he threw her that question as soon as she came back. Upon hearing his voice, Frida looked up and flashed him a casual smile. Nowhere. I just wanted to take a stroll. I finally got the chance to go out after being locked up at home for the past few days. Jonathan's scrutinizing gaze was filled with suspicion. Frida said in a childlike voice, "Don't be so paranoid, Jonathan. Aubrey's gone. I can't find her even if I went to. I really went out to get some fresh air." Only then did Jonathan force himself to believe her. Still, he reminded her, "Don't do anything stupid again. Be good and stay at home. Grandpa and I won't let you suffer." Frida nodded obediently, and he said nothing else. The more she thought about it, the more relieved she felt. There was even a subtle smugness on her face when she stepped into the Queen residence. "Where have you been?" Recently, Jonathan had been closely monitoring her whereabouts. When he found out she had left the company in the afternoon, he had been waiting in the living room ever since he came home. That was why he threw her that question as soon as she came back. Upon hearing his voice, Frida looked up and flashed him a casual smile. "Nowhere. I just wanted to take a stroll. I finally got the chance to go out after being locked up at home for the past few days." Jonathan's scrutinizing gaze was filled with suspicion. Frida said in a childlike voice, "Don't be so paranoid, Jonathan. Aubrey's gone. I can't find her even if I want to. I really went out to get some fresh air." Only then did Jonathan force himself to believe her. Still, he reminded her, "Don't do anything stupid again. Be good and stay at home. Grandpa and I won't let you suffer." Frida nodded obediently, and he said nothing else. "By the way, I think I saw Lucian this afternoon." "What did he want with you?" asked Frida. Jonathan had nothing to hide, so he simply answered, "He wants my help to contact a few medicinal herbs suppliers. It has nothing to do with you." Frida felt much more relieved when she heard that, and the smile on her face grew wider. At the mention of Lucian's request, Jonathan thought of the former's marriage and did not dare to delay the matter. "It's late. Rest early. I'm going to carry on with my work." Frida hummed in agreement and went upstairs. As soon as she returned to her room, her expression turned grim. "We're children of the Queen family. What gives Jonathan the right to tell me what I should do? Just because he's the eldest child and started working in the company sooner than me? Humph. I'm going to make those elders regret it when I marry into a family more powerful than the Queen family." Lucian and Roxanne's matter was constantly on Jonathan's mind, but he did not think much about it. A heartwarming sight. Roxanne had been in a meeting the entire afternoon. Yet, there were still no leads. She looked gloomy when she returned to the Farwell residence. "Mommy, why didn't you pick us up in the afternoon?" Lucian had picked the children up that day, and they had been asking for Roxanne the entire evening. The second she returned, Benny immediately went to meet her at the door. His disappointment was written all over his face. Seeing that, Roxanne forced a smile at them. "I was busy in the afternoon. I'll pick you up once I'm done with my work." Lucian, who was observing them by the side, raised his brow. Are you guys upset that I picked all of you up alone? Or maybe you prefer Mr. Lawson more?" Upon hearing that, the children hurriedly hugged his thighs. "No. We don't want Mr. Lawson. We want you, Daddy." "Run along and play, then," said Lucian while patting their heads. The children's gazes shifted from Roxanne to Lucian. They could tell the adults had something to talk about, so they tactfully dispersed. Lucian approached Roxanne and caressed her face. Still no leads. It was Roxanne's first time feeling so disheartened. She could not help but become clingy as she placed her forehead on his shoulder. "Yet. I really don't know what to do. I'm so tired. I never knew negotiating businesses was so tiring." Lucian pulled her into his arms and patted her back gently. "Don't worry. I've already asked Jonathan to contact all the medicinal herb suppliers in the country." Roxanne smiled. "Thank you." After marching into the study, he began calling up all the medicinal herb suppliers the Queen family knew of. Lucian lowered his eyes to meet her gaze. "Just don't forget what you promised me." When their eyes met, Roxanne could sense the sincerity and affection in his gaze. Immediately, she blushed and nodded with a smile. Right then, Catalina had served dinner and called them to have their meal. The two ended their conversation and led the children to the dining table. Alas, the thought of the medicines made Roxanne lose her appetite. Noting that, Lucian frowned and put down his fork halfway through his meal. Everyone cast him a confused look. They watched him roll up his sleeves and enter the kitchen, leaving everyone bewildered. Roxanne got up and said, "I'll go take a look." She entered the kitchen, only to find Lucian busy cooking at the stove. A guess surfaced in her mind. Still, she asked softly, "What are you doing?" Lucian stopped what he was doing when he heard her voice and looked over. "Why are you here?" "You left halfway through the meal, so I got worried," answered Roxanne while making his way to him. She was curious about what he was going to do. Lucian joked, "What are you worried about?" "That I'll burn down the kitchen." Roxanne was stunned, but she laughed out loud in the next second. Lucian felt much more relieved seeing that he kissed her lips before explaining, "I noticed you didn't have much of an appetite, so I'm making you some salad." Salads are appetizing. When he finished explaining what he was doing, he turned around and carried on with his work. "By the way, my cooking skills aren't that great. I'm sure you know about it. I'll make sure to put less vinegar in it this time." The thought of the dish he made in the past made Roxanne smile brighter. They prepared the dish together while chatting softly. It was a heartwarming sight. Not long after, Lucian brought the salad out. The three children, who had finished their meal, tactfully left the table to give the adults some privacy. Roxanne was very kind by eating quite a large portion of the salad and even finishing the risotto. After dinner, Lucian told her to get some rest while he stayed back to take care of the kids. Perfect disguise. 3 days went by. Wearing an icy cold expression, Jack questioned his assistant, Kevin, "Is there still no update from Roxanne?" Sensing his displeasure, Kevin nodded apprehensively. Jack's countenance turned a few shades darker after he took in Kevin's response. "Roxanne must have taken the initiative to meet up with me the other day because the medicinal herbs at the research institute are depleting. They should have used up their stock by now after these few days. How can she remain so calm and not establish contact with me? He sought confirmation from Kevin. How's the situation at their research institute now? The factory has ceased operation and requested considerable compensation from them. The production for the new medicine has been entirely halted. How long has it been? Kevin thought momentarily before answering. It's been 3 days. 3 days. Jack sat behind his desk while tapping the tabletop with his fingers. A pensive look spread across his face. Did Roxanne tell me the truth? Have they found another medicinal herb supplier to collaborate with? He called to mind all the reputable medicinal herb suppliers. Still, he couldn't think of any supplier whose medicinal herbs quality was comparable to Damaris Group's. Do you think they've found a medicinal herb supplier capable of replacing Damaris Group? Jack shifted his gaze to Kevin. The latter shook his head without hesitation. That's not possible unless they extend their search overseas. To the best of my knowledge, there isn't a local company with a quality of medicinal herbs comparable to Damaris Group's. His reply coincided with Jack's thoughts. In that case, how can they be so confident as not to initiate a follow-up discussion with us? Or did Roxanne successfully secure a medicinal herb supplier from abroad with the Farwell family's help? But that's not possible either. Over 100 medicinal herbs are required to manufacture this new medicine. Even if they managed to find a new supplier, there must be a few types of medicinal herbs that are exclusively owned by Damaris Group. Damaris Group is Roxanne's only viable partner. With that thought in his mind, Jack gradually relaxed his tense expression and curled his lips into a confident smile. Inside a dilapidated residential area in Han, Aubrey carefully removed the bandages on her face. Placed before her was a mirror. She shut her eyes and was reluctant to open them for a long while. Although that man had informed her before leaving the country that he would help her alter her appearance, she didn't expect that to happen so soon. She was taken away by someone to undergo plastic surgery almost immediately after her plane landed. She would have to face a countenance entirely different from her previous look when she opened her eyes. I have to endure all of these because of that, Roxanne. Aubrey gnashed her teeth as intense hatred overwhelmed her. It was only after an indeterminate time that she gradually opened her eyes. Aubrey felt disgusted as she looked at her face in the mirror. Her facial features now resembled those of a typical internet influencer she despised the most in the past. She wasn't ugly, but her appearance was no longer distinctive, and no one would realize she was Aubrey Pearson. Nevertheless, that was the perfect disguise for her at that instant. She touched her face while trying her best to convince herself to accept her current outward form. She could only return to Harrington to take her revenge with that face. While she was absorbed in bitterness and resentment, someone abruptly knocked on the door. "Miss Pearson, are you in there?" A man's voice sounded outside. However, Aubrey wasn't in the mood to entertain him. The knocks on the door grew louder. Evidently, the person outside was getting impatient. "My boss sent me here to deliver some things to you. Hurry up and open the door." 1,000,000 After hearing those words, Aubrey finally got up and opened the door. With an arm outstretched, she rudely said, "Give me the things, and you can leave now." A lecherous-looking young man stood at the doorway, sizing her up. His eyes lit up when he saw her face and figure. Aubrey narrowed her eyes and urged him in displeasure, "Are you deaf? Hurry up and give it to me. Miss Pearson, I think there are some details I need to confirm with you. He curled his lips into a malicious smile and waved the documents in his hand at her but showed no inclination to hand her the file. Aubrey's facial expression turned grim. We can speak here. Someone as lowly as he is not qualified to enter my room. That man's eyes glinted coldly when he took in the apparent disdainful look on her face. The next second, he stepped forward and pulled the door open. Naturally, Aubrey's strength was no match for him. She was almost dragged out of the room following the outward swing of the door. What are you doing? She glared at that man. He had already stridden past her and swaggered into the room. Miss Pearson, I know you used to be the daughter of the Pearson family and look down on hooligans like us. However, you need to understand our statuses are almost the same now. You'll need my help to deal with plenty of matters now that you are living abroad. Right after saying that, he sat down on her bed. Aubrey's room was pitifully small. Her room had only a bed, and not even a couch was available. She became more exasperated when she saw he had the audacity to sit on her bed. Get up! Unfazed, he took out some identification documents from the file and started elaborating while disregarding Aubrey's furious remark, "From now on, you're no longer a member of the Pearson family. Your name is Christina Patel, and these are your identification documents and introduction to your background. You can go through the details when you're free." Christina Patel. Aubrey's expression stiffened. She strode up to that man, snatched the identification documents from him, and browsed through the content. Her scowl intensified when she saw the picture and name on the ID card. Roxanne. This is all that's fault. Not only have I lost my face, but I'm also prohibited from using my name. I'll never let you off. Aubrey's hand trembled continuously as she held the identification documents. Suddenly, she felt something on her waist. Aubrey immediately snapped back to her senses and warily stepped away from the bed. That man calmly got to his feet and approached her. I've put in a lot of effort to secure these identification documents. There will be some loose ends to deal with subsequently. The money you previously paid is far from sufficient, so you'll have to fork out another sum. Aubrey furrowed her brows after listening to that. Didn't we come to an agreement in the past? He clicked his tongue. I didn't expect you to commit such severe crimes in Chinara and that the process of handling your fake identity to be so significantly complicated. When she heard the mention of her wrongdoings in Chinara, her expression changed. She was no longer as tough as before. How much more do you need? He held up a finger in response. 1,000, she asked with a frown. That man scoffed as if he had heard some kind of joke. We're overseas at the moment. What can I do with that small amount of money? I'll need at least 1 million. Aubrey widened her eyes. You're ripping me off. I've given them 2 million previously. I can't believe he's again asking for so much money from me. I don't have any cash left. Betray her own body, the man chuckled. Goodness, I'm telling you the truth. In the end, we're just working for someone else. Why would I want to con you? Before Aubrey could respond, the man, his voice colder, went on, but even if I did con you, would you turn me into the police? I doubt it. The police in Chinara would come for you, and you'd be detained and sent back to your country. Aubrey's face turned ashen as he threatened her, but she knew she couldn't do anything about it. After all, she was in a strange land where no one knew her. To put it plainly, no one might even notice if she were to disappear or die here. She didn't dare report him to the police. I don't have that much money, she replied through gritted teeth. She had left the country with only 5 million. After her plastic surgery, making a new ID for herself, and renting a place to stay, she only had a few $100,000 left. Moreover, she still had many things to settle on her end, and a few $100,000 wouldn't be enough. There was no way she could come up with 1 million to pay the balance. The man arched a brow at her words and gave her a once-over. Aubrey tensed up. Her eyes were filled with disgust as she watched him warily. You can pay with something else if you don't have the money. The man paused as his gaze landed on her face. Your real face looks better, but this is acceptable as well. Plus, you used to be the daughter of a rich man. I've never slept with a rich man's daughter before. He was making an obvious suggestion that she should pay with her body. Aubrey's face immediately darkened. How dare you? If you can't settle the balance, then we'll just have to take back the documents we used to create Christina. Please look for someone else if you want to return to your home country, Ms. Pearson, the man replied confidently without putting pressure on her. With that, he reached out for the ID in her hand. Needless to say, Aubrey refused to hand it over. She had spent half of the money she brought to create this identity for herself. She would lose everything if they took it back, and she would have no more money to disguise herself. It's fine. You can keep it. It's just a few pieces of paper. The important stuff is on our computers. We can destroy it whenever we please, the man said arrogantly. He was already all over her as he spoke. Aubrey's face shifted palpably as she balled her hands into fists. She looked as if she might slap the man at any moment. The man wasn't afraid of her in the slightest. He placed a hand on her waist. I've seen that photo of yours from Chinara, Ms. Pearson. You're not some pure, chaste girl, so don't play the virgin card with me. Just let me sleep with you, and we won't owe each other anything. Aubrey felt numb as she stood there, rooted to the spot. The man pulled her into his embrace and started groping her. He smiled in delight when he noticed she wasn't fighting him anymore. He carried her up, bridal style, and threw her onto the bed. Tears streamed down Aubrey's face when she heard him removing his clothes. Back then, no trash would have dared to hit on her. She used to be the girl who would kick their asses if they even dared to steal a glance at her. But now, she was left with no choice. She couldn't even defend herself against a mere thug. Nobody could help her. The only thing she could do now was to betray her own body. Bar hostess, an hour had passed, and Aubrey lay on the bed, numb and tearful, with hickeys covering her body. The man lay beside her, naked and smug. I have to say, this young lady is different from the prostitutes I've slept with. She's so fair and flawless and even smells great. It would be such a shame to only sleep with her once. With that, he sat up and turned to face Aubrey. Aubrey felt his gaze on her and returned it with a hateful glare, her face stained with tears. She wished she could tear him apart. Don't give me that look. You won't be marrying into some rich family anymore, so why not let me take advantage of you? You must realize I'm the only one who can help you now since you're all alone in a foreign country. I can even make sure you're well fed if you're good." Aubrey turned away in disdain and tightened her grip on the covers, desperately wanting to cover herself up. However, her actions only provoked the man, who reached under the covers and touched her all over. Despite feeling angry and disgusted, Aubrey was too weak to fight against the man, especially after sleeping with him. She was so feeble that it seemed as if she was simply playing hard to get. A few minutes later, the man got his way and started to enter her again. Aubrey bit her lip to prevent herself from moaning, her lips bleeding by the time the man finished and removed himself from her. The man sneered as he forced Aubrey's mouth open. "You're not bad, just a little feisty. I'll just need to get someone to train you, and I'm sure we'll be able to get a good price," he commented callously. Aubrey's face paled at his insult, and she lashed out, "Shut up, you bastard! You'd better pray hard that I don't make a comeback one day, or else I won't let you off." The man merely shrugged indifferently, reminding her of her dire situation. "I think you should worry about yourself first before this. You won't have a single cent left after taking care of all these, right? Plus, it's impossible for you to get in contact with your family in Chinara since the Farwells are keeping a close eye on you. You can only work as a server with that fake identity of yours even if you land a job, and the money you earn won't even be enough to buy a tenth of your bag." Those words hit Aubrey right in the gut, and she felt the color drain from her face as she realized the thought of living a broke life was unbearable. "I have an idea to help you make more money. You can still earn tens of thousands a month," the man drawled. Aubrey turned to face him, deciding to hear him out. The man continued, "You can become a bar hostess with that beauty of yours. If you're lucky, the tips alone will make you tens of thousands a month. I'll be responsible for your safety. You just have to pay me 1/10 of the money you earn. What do you think? A bar hostess?" Aubrey was filled with humiliation and disgust at the thought of becoming a bar hostess. The man left her alone as he got off the bed with a satisfied smile and headed to the bathroom. He said to Aubrey, "This is your only chance to make some good money. Who knows, you might even find yourself a sugar daddy at the bar if you're lucky. You've already slept with me anyway. There's not much difference in becoming a bar hostess after all this." Aubrey stared at him with cold determination and reluctantly agreed to his proposal. "Fine. I'll do it." She knew what was in store for her, but she needed to survive so that she could make a comeback and have her revenge in the future. Invite Archie and Benny. Meanwhile, Sonia hadn't heard from her son or granddaughter for a few days after leaving the Farwell residence. The more she thought about it, the more her unease grew. On a random weekend, she decided to visit the manor. Roxanne was working overtime at the research institute, searching for a new medicinal herb supplier to replace Damaris Group, while Lucian was also working late. Only Catalina was at the manor looking after Estella, Benny, and Archie. "Mrs. Farwell," Catalina addressed Sonia respectfully and flicked a worried glance at the kids. She knew Sonia didn't like Archie and Benny. "Now that Mr. Farwell isn't together with Ms. Jarvis, I wonder what Mrs. Farwell will do to put the kids on the spot." Sonia's cold gaze skated across Catalina before landing on Estella. She ignored Archie and Benny, who were standing next to the girl. "Do you miss me, Essie? Come, give me a hug." She spread her arms. Estella didn't budge and had no intentions to approach her. Sonia's expression sank, and she continued, "I'll bring you out for some delicious food. Do you want to eat something yummy?" Estella stood timidly beside the boys, clutching the hem of Archie's sleeve, unwilling to go closer. Irritation flashed in Sonia's eyes at Estella's dependence on the boys. She wanted to snatch Estella in her embrace but was afraid it would backfire. "I'll take you to eat lots of tasty food and buy many toys, okay? I remember you liked the ice cream from that particular shop." She stifled the urge and clung to her last strand of patience, pasting a warm smile on her face. Estella's eyes twinkled when Sonia mentioned ice cream, and she craned her neck to look at Archie and Benny. "I want ice cream, but I also want to be with Archie and Benny." Sonia seethed with anger when Estella had to seek their permission for something as simple as going out for ice cream. She did, however, want Estella to behave, so she leashed her emotions and pulled out 2 tickets to the amusement park. "I bought tickets to the amusement park. Haven't you always wanted to go?" Estella wavered and stared at the tickets in her hand. She eventually shook her head after much deliberation. "No, Daddy and Mommy will take us there." Sonia got upset. "They're both quite busy, and we don't know when they will be free to take you there. I can take you there now since this is the best time to visit. You will have to wait until next year if you miss it." Estella's expression started showing signs of giving in. Archie and Benny said to her, "You can go if you want to. Daddy arranged a series of classes for us to study at home." Estella shook her head and pouted. "I want to go with both of you." She was still a little afraid of Sonia and didn't want to be separated from Archie and Benny. Sonia furrowed her brows, tucked away the tickets, and said regretfully, "I'll give them to other kids if you don't want to go." Then she pivoted on her heels and left. "Grandma!" Estella hurriedly called out. Sonia's plan succeeded. She stopped in her tracks and turned toward Estella. "What if Archie and Benny got lost?" Estella sniffled and blinked back her tears, flashing a smile at Archie and Benny that spread upward to light her eyes. Seeing Estella happy made them a little bitter. They knew that Sonia wasn't fond of them and that she might ruin their fun even if she let them tag along. However, they would acquiesce because it was what Estella wanted. Archie and Benny shared a look and managed a smile to pacify her. "All right, let's go together. Stop crying already." Estella nodded fervently. "I'm not crying. I'm very happy. The amusement park is going to be so fun." Sonia came over to lead her away. Estella didn't shy away from her this time, only occasionally glancing over her shoulder at Archie and Benny. "What are you looking at?" Sonia asked, her eyes downcast. Estella grumbled unhappily, "Slow down, Grandma. Wait for my brothers." Sonia's expression hardened, her grip around Estella's hand tightening. "Watch what you're saying. They're not your brothers. You have no siblings." Estella pursed her lips, unhappiness stamped all over her face. "You're lying, Grandma. I want to be with Archie and Benny." She struggled out of Sonia's grasp and tried to go toward them. Sonia kept a lid on her disgust, temporarily tolerating Estella's tantrums. "Okay, I was wrong. They're your brothers," she said and hugged Estella, afraid that Estella would run away. Archie and Benny were a few steps behind them and overheard the entire conversation. They lowered their gazes, disappointed that Sonia didn't want them to be Estella's brothers. "I want to go," she was on the verge of tears. "But can I also invite Archie and Benny?" Sonia gave both of them the stink eye and was about to refuse, but she couldn't bear the thought of turning down her granddaughter with her reddened, watery eyes. She eventually caved in. "They can come if you don't cry." Sonia had the driver take them to the amusement park and guided them in. She only had 2 tickets, so she bought 2 more for Archie and Benny at the entrance. The kids didn't realize 4 of the tickets were different. Sonia and Estella entered the attractions without a hitch when they were inside the amusement park, but Archie and Benny were stopped by an attendant. "Kids, you need to queue up." Archie and Benny were bewildered and pointed at Sonia. "We're with that grandma." The attendant checked their tickets again and was similarly perplexed. "They're VIPs. Both of you have regular tickets and will need to wait in line." Archie and Benny understood and took their tickets, obediently going to the back of the line. Estella realized her brothers weren't with her in the maze and shook Sonia's hand anxiously. "Grandma, where are Archie and Benny?" "They're probably still outside. Maybe they don't like this attraction and went to another one. The park is very safe. They won't go missing," she replied, unperturbed. Then, her eyes went to the crowd queuing up outside. "It's peak season, and the queue is long. I hope those 2 take their time waiting in line." Just as she led Estella in, Estella wriggled free from her grasp. The girl ran as fast as her little legs could carry her. "I'm going to find Archie and Benny." Sonia chased after her and wrapped her arms around her, preventing her escape. "They will look for you soon. Be a good girl, and you'll have so much fun." Estella searched the milling throng of visitors at the entrance, but she couldn't locate the boys. Her eyes reddened in agitation, and tears laced her voice as she said, "I want to be with Archie and Benny. What if Archie and Benny got lost in the crowd? Daddy and Mommy will be very worried." "Wait for Archie and Benny." Upon noticing that Estella was about to burst into tears and seeing the crowds of people around them, Sonia had no choice but to give in and carry the little girl to the entrance to wait. After half an hour, they finally saw the 2 boys in the line. "Archie! Benny!" Estella quickly ran over to them, worry etched across her small face. "Hi, did you come in so late?" They looked at each other. Then Archie answered in a comforting tone, "We just accidentally fell behind, and it took us a while to find you guys." Hearing that, Estella sniffled and clasped their hands. "We'll hold hands. That way, we won't lose each other." Archie and Benny did not refuse but merely glanced at Sonia, who was standing some distance away. Her expression shifted immediately. "I wasn't planning on bringing those 2 little bastards along. However, seeing that they're rather perceptive and can take a hint, I don't mind letting them join in for a while. Even so, they have to keep their distance from Essie." Since they were already inside one of the attractions, Sonia did not protest and allowed the 3 children to walk together. Once they exited the attraction, she picked Estella up in her arms and said in a doting tone, I'll take you to see the princesses. Would you like that? Estella nodded and said innocently, I'm a little princess too. Tickled by her granddaughter's reply, Sonia chuckled and scratched her nose. That's right. You're a little princess. Now, we're going to meet the older princesses. With that, she carried Estella toward the next attraction, leaving the boys far behind them. Estella slowly pulled a long face. Archie and Benny. Grandma, wait for them. Sonia was forced to slacken her pace and wait for a while. After Archie and Benny caught up to them, she leaned down and asked, I'm taking Essie to see the princesses. You two boys wouldn't be interested in that, right? She did not give them time to respond and quickly continued, run along elsewhere to play. I've upgraded your tickets, so you won't need to line up. You can play whatever you want without having to wait. In that case, I don't want to go and see the princesses either. I want to play with Archie and Benny. Put me down, Grandma, Estella declared, squirming in Sonia's arms. Having learned her lesson after what happened earlier, Sonia held Estella tightly, not giving the latter a chance to break free. That's enough, Essie. Archie and Benny aren't interested in meeting the princesses, so I'll go with you. Let them have fun by themselves. That only made Estella kick up an even bigger fuss. Others around them started glancing in their direction, thinking Sonia was up to no good. She stared back at them fiercely, then glared at Archie and Benny. What are you still doing here? You can go home if you don't want to play. The two boys knew that Sonia despised them. Seeing that Estella was on the verge of tears, they could only say reassuringly, Don't cry, Essie. We're going on the roller coaster and we'll come to look for you in a bit. Archie wiped away Estella's tears, took Benny's hand, and waved at her. Carrying Estella in her arms, Sonia walked away without a backward glance while Archie and Benny remained where they were. Benny felt worried and disappointed as he watched Sonia and Estella leave. Archie, do you think Essie will cry later? What if she cries a lot? Shall we secretly follow them? Furrowing his brows, Archie shook his head. Grandma will calm her down. If she finds us following them, it'll only make her even angrier. Then he turned to look at his younger brother. Do you feel like going on any ride? Benny responded with a shake of his head. I didn't even want to come out today. I only came here with them to accompany Essie. We'll just wait here for Essie to get back, then, Archie replied. Let us not wait any more. Sonia brought Estella to meet a few of the princess characters. However, the latter was distracted and kept asking to return to Archie and Benny. The older woman seethed with anger at the sight of the teary-eyed little girl. If you don't like this, we can go. She pretended to stroke Estella's head lovingly before turning and walking toward the exit. Thinking Sonia was finally taking her to Archie and Benny, Estella stopped crying. However, they had gone halfway when she realized they were not going the right way. Instead, she could see the amusement park exit ahead of her. No. I want to find Archie and Benny. You're evil, Grandma. I don't want you anymore. Estella wailed, struggling to free herself from Sonia's arms. Sonia held her in a vice-like grip and said in a brusque tone, What are you talking about? Ever since Roxanne and those two little bastards showed up, you've been hanging around them all the time. I think you've almost forgotten you're a member of the Farwell family, and now you're even saying that you don't want me anymore. They must have taught you that. Well, you have to stay with me today. She strode toward the exit while carrying Estella, and within just a few minutes, the pair had left the amusement park. Watching the widening distance between them and the park entrance, Estella sobbed until she had barely any energy left. She was exhausted by the time Sonia carried her into the car. When the driver saw that only Sonia and Estella had returned, he asked cautiously, "Mrs. Farwell, what about the other two? Drive to the nearest shopping mall," she instructed icily as though she had not heard him speak. The driver knew better than to refuse when he noticed her stormy mood and started driving. Throughout the car journey, Estella continued sobbing quietly. Archie and Benny waited for Estella and Sonia inside the amusement park. When neither returned for the brothers, Benny suggested they look for them. They circled the entire park but saw no sign of Estella or Sonia. They started feeling a little anxious. "Do you think something happened to Essie?" Benny asked, looking at his older brother nervously. "I got lost before, but I'm much braver than Essie. If she gets lost, she'll surely cry buckets." Archie was worried too, but he tried to stay calm and think of a solution. A few seconds later, he used his smartwatch to call Essie. He tried a few times, but alas, there was no answer. That made Benny even more uneasy. "Quick, let's tell Mommy." Archie mulled over the matter for a while, then gave Benny a reassuring look. "Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Essie is with Grandma, and we can't find either of them now." So, maybe, he could not bring himself to finish his sentence. However, Benny had already guessed what he wanted today and asked dejectedly, "Did Grandma leave with Essie?" Although Archie made no response, the answer was clear from his facial expression. He, too, guessed that was most probably what had happened. "She doesn't like us, so she took Essie elsewhere and left us here. Why does she dislike us so much?" Benny mumbled under his breath. Archie could not help sighing inwardly. "I know how she feels about us, but I never thought she'd go so far as to abandon us at an amusement park and leave without us. Isn't she worried something might happen to us?" The thought upset him for a while. Then, he forced himself to perk up and took Benny's hand. "Let's not wait anymore and head back. Maybe Grandma has already gone home with Essie." Benny was hesitant. "Are we really not going to tell Mommy? What if Essie gets lost?" Archie furrowed his brows and answered, "Mommy hasn't been in a good mood over the past couple of days. If she finds out about it, she's going to be even more upset. Let's not make her worry and go home first." Upon listening to those words, Benny thought about how Roxanne had been over the past few days and nodded solemnly. The boys held hands and left the amusement park to hail a taxi. The taxi driver felt concerned when he saw two children hailing for a taxi. "Why are you kids on your own? Are you guys lost? Do you need me to call the police?" Archie shook his head. "We came out on our own. Our mommy is waiting for us at home. Please send us back, sir." The driver doubted those words, but he couldn't bear to leave the kids by the side of the road, so he let them get into the car. The driver only felt more at ease and stepped on the gas after the kids told him their address accurately. The Farwell residence was quite a distance away from the amusement park. Since the driver was driving two children, he drove slowly and carefully to the Farwell residence. By the time they arrived at their destination, it was already past 4 in the afternoon. The car slowly rolled to a stop at the Farwell residence entrance, and the driver was stunned when he saw the luxurious building before his eyes. If the family is so rich, how can they let their kids roam around on their own? Aren't parents afraid that someone might kidnap their children? Sir, please wait a moment. I'll head in to get money, Archie said in a childish voice. The driver jolted out of his thoughts and flashed a friendly smile. That's not necessary. I don't take money from children. Hurry up and go in. Your parents must be worried sick. Obviously, Archie wouldn't agree. He patted Benny's shoulder and said, "Go and get some cash from Ms. Catalina. I'll wait for you in the car." Okay. Benny got out of the car and ran toward the entrance of the manor to ring the doorbell. Catalina quickly answered the video call. Benny told her what was going on, and Catalina hung up the phone and brought out some cash. Catalina noticed that the boys were on their own when she was paying the driver. Upon thanking the driver, she wanted to pay the driver more money, but the driver refused. Catalina had no choice but to send the driver off after thanking him once again. When she brought Archie and Benny in, she asked, "Why are you boys on your own? Where are Mrs. Farwell and Ms. Estella?" Catalina checked the boys' bodies for injuries as she spoke. Archie and Benny lifted their arms obediently into the air to let her examine their bodies. However, none of the boys knew how to answer Catalina when she asked about Sonia and Estella. Catalina breathed a sigh of relief after making sure the boys hadn't suffered any injuries. "Why are you boys keeping mum? Did Mrs. Farwell say something mean to you boys again?" Catalina knew how badly Sonia treated Archie and Benny. She was worried that Sonia had reprimanded them and told them to go home on their own. Archie and Benny shared a look. Neither of them wanted things to escalate, so they shook their heads and answered, "No. We got tired, so we decided to head home first." Catalina stared at them suspiciously for a few seconds. The boys were smiling so innocently that they seemed as though they were telling the truth. Although Catalina could tell something was amiss, she knew she couldn't get more information out of them. She let the matter slide and asked, "What would you boys want for dinner?" "I'll cook." The boys named a list of dishes in their piping voices in response. Catalina agreed readily with a smile. They could not have gotten lost after reassuring Catalina. Archie and Benny hurried up the stairs and went into their room. Archie was anxiously calling Estella on her smartwatch while Benny was trying to locate Estella on his laptop. Prior to that, he had already modified Estella's watch, so it had an additional tracking function. That was why he could track her watch on his laptop. Archie couldn't get through to Estella, so he turned to ask Benny, "How is it going? Have you tracked her down?" Benny was frowning and sweating bullets. A while later, he slammed the keyboard and yelled, "I found her!" Archie stared at the screen and saw a green dot moving around. "Where is this?" he asked in confusion. Moments prior, not only did Benny find Estella's location, but he had also confirmed the place she was at. Upon hearing Archie's question, Benny immediately answered, "She's in a mall nearby the amusement park." It seems that Essie has been there the entire afternoon. Archie nodded. If she's in a mall, I think she's just shopping. Archie and Benny couldn't help but feel disappointed. The mall and the amusement park are so near to each other. According to the tracker, we know what time they arrived at the mall. In fact, they were there shortly after splitting up with us. In other words, Grandma brought Essie to the mall just to get away from us. Does Grandma dislike us so much? Seeing that the green dot on the screen was still moving around, Archie suppressed his disappointment and said to Benny, "Keep an eye on the screen. If Essie's location changes, we'll call Grandma immediately." Archie was worried that Sonia would bring Estella back to the Farwell main residence just to keep them apart. Benny nodded and hummed in agreement. The two boys then stared at the screen intently. Less than half an hour later, the green dot on the screen suddenly moved away from the mall. Archie and Benny grew anxious. Benny then worked on his laptop to confirm the direction in which the green dot was moving. Both the boys finally felt at ease when they saw Sonia and Estella moving toward the Farwell residence. After shutting down the laptop, they ran downstairs to wait. Soon, they saw Sonia carrying Estella into the mansion. The driver was walking in behind them with bags of goods in his hands. "See? They're here, aren't they? Stop crying already. I told you they couldn't have gotten lost," Sonia said to Estella irritably. Evidently, Estella had been crying the entire time when they were in the mall. Sonia was infuriated because even though she had been buying Estella things to coax her, it didn't work. "Manners, Grandma told me she called you guys, but neither of you picked up." Estella was visibly upset. Archie and Benny shot Sonia a dubious glance when they heard those words. "Since when did Grandma call us?" As a matter of fact, we were the ones calling Essie. However, the calls we made were all unsuccessful. The boys couldn't bear to spill the truth when they saw how red Estella's eyes were. They backed Sonia up, saying, "Our watches died, so we came home to charge them." With that, the boys shot Sonia a look. Sonia had been worried that the boys would expose her. She was surprised to see them backing her up, but she quickly calmed herself down. "Those boys said that just to please me. Well, I'm not so easily pleased." Sonia approached Estella and said, "All right, now, since you're already home and you've seen them, go wash up. You have tears all over your face." Estella looked at Archie and Benny aggrievedly. "Grandma must have something to say to us." Archie and Benny shared a glance and nodded. Everyone in the mall had been looking at Sonia as though she were a kidnapper. Left without a choice, she had to bring Estella home. The second Estella saw Archie and Benny, she broke free from Sonia's grip and dashed toward them. Needless to say, the boys were heartbroken when they saw Estella crying. "Stop crying, Essie. We're fine. I want to be with you guys. I didn't want to go to the mall." "You guys weren't in the mall," Estella choked out. Sonia paled when she heard Estella saying those words. Archie and Benny felt bad, but they could only try their best to comfort Estella. "We were wrong. We shouldn't have left you alone, Essie. From now on, we'll bring you along wherever we go, okay?" Join our Facebook and WhatsApp group for more updates, link is given in description. Rest audiobook will be continued in next episode.